Hello and welcome. You're here today because you're a freelancer and things aren't going as well as you'd planned. You got into freelancing because you wanted more time, more money, and more freedom. And while the freedom may be working, the time and the money, they're not going so well. You're struggling to get clients and you're spending so much more time than you expected. You're getting frustrated with the amount of energy and time and even money you're investing into this business. And you're constantly focusing on getting clients from 99 Designs or Upwork, all these different websites like ProFinder that just came out, and you don't know how to focus your energy. It was supposed to be easy. It was supposed to be about being able to travel and live the life you want. And instead, things just aren't working. Well, I have the answer for you. My name is Matthew Pollard, and I am the Rapid Growth Guy. And I want to talk to you about John McIntyre. John McIntyre came to me wanting to be a freelancer and wanting to be able to earn the money that he set out for originally. Now, for John, things were actually going quite well, at least externally. See, he was a podcaster and he had a top 10 podcast in America. Downloads were great and all those external signs of success, they were all there. The problem was, the money wasn't working so well and he was spending a lot more time than he expected just to keep things going. He came to me and he said, Matt, I'm getting 80 clients a year and I'm making $50,000 a year. It's got to be better than that. I mean, I'm a top 10 podcaster in the world. With John, the first thing that we realized was that he was focusing on one job at a time. And I asked him why exactly that was. And he said, well, I want to be able to, at the drop of a hat, go on a plane and go skiing. So I don't want to have recurring clients, because if I have recurring clients, then I'll always have to be in the office. The first thing I asked him is, when did you decide that? He just assumed that if he had a continuous client, he'd have to continually work and operate that client all the time. So I asked him, I said, with your one-on-one clients where you do one thing and then you have to go and get another client, don't you find that it takes a lot of energy to continually focus and try and get new proposals out and then get that gig and then do the job and then you go skiing, but then when you come back, you've got this constant state of stress about getting that next client, that anxiety. Don't you feel like you kind of need to escape to go on holiday to get over that problem again? He's like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. He goes, every time I work for a little bit, I get a group of clients, and the stress and anxiety around getting those clients means I'm constantly trying to escape out on holidays. So we looked at working out exactly what goals he wanted and creating a business that aligned with those goals so he could actually live the life that he always wanted. See, him wanting to go and ski made him decide that he needed just one-time clients. Constant, piecemeal, job by job. Very much like I'm sure you're doing right now. And as soon as he realized that he could have long-term recurring clients, that everything changed. He realized that he could hire a short-term virtual assistant that would just manage the clients while he was skiing. Everything opened up for John. The next problem that he had was he had a podcast that was called The McMethod, very successful podcast at teaching new business owners how to get their first clients through autoresponders. The problem was that most new businesses don't have any money. So he would get all of these people email him about wanting to learn how to do autoresponders, but they didn't want to pay him. They wanted to learn additional skills on how. Then he had a whole other problem that when he did have somebody that came in that was a new client that did have about $1,000, $1,200, which is what he was charging, then those people would say, but I can get an autoresponder sequence off Fiverr for $5. And he said, but hang on a second, mine's so much more valuable, it has this outcome. But they didn't understand the value. They didn't understand the return on investment because they were a brand new business. They didn't have that many clients. So it wasn't like all of a sudden they were going to get this massive, huge inflow of clients. On top of that, there were people on Upwork saying, I'll do an autoresponder sequence and I'm just as good. And he was constantly fighting to prove his worth. And I said, well, John, the niche market that you've chosen is wrong. So he called himself the autoresponder guy. And the reason why he did that is he thought it was cool. You know, he'd go to one of his friends and say, I'm the autoresponder guy, and his friends would go out, and anyone that heard that they wanted an autoresponder sequence, they would say, wow, you should speak to John. John is the autoresponder guy. Makes perfect sense, right? Except people that know about autoresponder sequences, they also know they can get them on Fiverr, on Upwork, and how ridiculously cheap they are. So what we did is we changed his name into the re-engagement specialist. And the reason why we did this is we decided the niche market that was going to work for him was high-level e-commerce stores. I mean, you think about the last time you went online and you bought something. Did they ever send you an email saying, hey, we think you might also like these things? I mean, maybe Amazon did, but a lot of these e-commerce stores, they spend all this money advertising to get you as a client. They send you the item, and maybe they put a nice tailored message in there. Maybe, very unlikely actually. But even if they do that, that's the end. There is no continuous email cycle afterwards about things that they would like. So what he did is he started approaching e-commerce stores and saying, what we need to focus on doing is re-engaging your clientele to be absolutely excited to buy the next item, the complementary products, the other things that they may be interested in. And he started to pick up clients. As a matter of fact, within just a few weeks of us deciding to do this, he picked up his very first client. But instead of focusing on 80 clients for $50,000, he got one client, just one, that paid $45,000 in contract for 12 months. An unbelievable return on investment. And instead of constantly writing new email campaigns and having to do all of this due diligence and all of this research for every additional client for $1,000 to $1,200, instead, every time he would just change a couple of parts of the email about the new product for that specific line of purchases. And that's all he was required to do for the month. So it required less work, less time, and each customer paid so much more. Then John had another problem. He'd grown up in a family where you learned that you have to work hard to earn money. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it. I mean, as a freelancer, we've decided that we can earn bigger dollars and have that freedom. But we probably grew up with parents that said, no, you've got to work hard. You've got to work hard to get that money in. So all of a sudden, he made $45,000 and he didn't have to do much work. As a matter of fact, he even hired someone to do a lot of the customizations of the emails. So he had this, the shoe's gonna drop and I'm gonna get caught out. And every time the customer would just message something, all of a sudden, he would freak out like he was gonna lose this client and like he was gonna get called a fraud, and all of these problems were going to occur that was getting in the way of him being absolutely happy. Now John has the flexibility where he can travel wherever he wants and do whatever he wants. He's very into music and he can now spend some great time doing that. The business exactly aligns with what he's trying to obtain because he has a great message that speaks to the right audience. He understands exactly how to sell to that audience. It pays in a way that every single month he just expects a payment, which means he can hire assistants that know they have a long-term gig, and then he focuses on just making sure that those clients are happy. The only other thing that John struggled with is the fact that the sale took a little bit longer. I said it took a few weeks to get this $45,000 client. John was used to getting 80 clients every year to pay him $50,000. So John had all of this anxiety around getting that new client. I mean, he was lucky. I mean, you might be used to hopping on Upwork and sending a proposal or a custom letter or getting invited to quote and then not hearing back. At least he had customers calling him, even though they were the wrong customers. But for John, now he had to go out and actually target these clients. And these people were spending $45,000 in that year, locked into a contract. They wanted to think about it. They wanted to do their due diligence on John. And therefore the sale took a little bit longer. And John had all this anxiety of, what if I don't get the deal? Or they seemed excited, but why haven't they got back to me? See, these days as contractors, as freelancers, we look for instant gratification. We want to get a deal today, then we need to get a deal tomorrow. And that's because our brain tells us that if we're not locking down deals, we're not going to get paid, we're not going to get to eat, our family's going to starve, we're not going to travel, our whole life's ruined. It just blows out of proportion. With John, he had to learn patience. And so will you. One of the things you really need to focus on is working out what clients are actually going to give you the freedom, the money, and the time that you absolutely desire. And sometimes it may take a little bit longer to get that client, but it will be so worth it. But I don't want you to take my word for it. I'm 100% about transparency. So I would love it if you click on the link below, you'll get to see exactly what John has to say in John's words himself. Because after all, no one can share his message and his success better than he can. And then I would love to invite you to a webinar where I'm going to show you in exact detail the exact strategies that I use that up until now, I would not even share with anyone that wasn't a one-on-one client. And I'm going to absolutely open the door and share everything. So first, hear from John, and I look forward to seeing you in the upcoming webinar. Cheers.